Welcome, everybody. Another edition of Heavy in the Paint. As you see, I'm Gerald Brown here in the paint and none other. Let me get it out the way already because I tell you right now, he's an unbelievable individual. He's an individual I call my brother, a friend. He's an individual, 3-time NBA champion. He's an individual that didn't sit on the bench. He was an individual that was out there getting it done. He was also a bad boy in college, playing at the University of Iowa, and also happened to know a thing or two about greatness, holding 3 championships, as I said. Super agent. He's got his own podcast. He goes by so many different names, but you know the name they put on the check, it says Mr. BJ Armstrong. BJ, what's good?
Man, appreciate it. Appreciate the nice words, the great introduction as usual. It's great to finally make it on Heavy in the Paint.
It's heavy in the face. So, you know what, BJ? We talk so much off air. First and foremost, I always say I'm honored because we talk so much and I learn so much from you. But as a fan, I'm also respectful of what you have accomplished in the NBA, high school. And I always tell the story how the fact is that the first time I spoke to you, you telling me, I was offended because you said, well, you know, I played in college and stuff in the NBA. And I said, yo, I know what you did. And I remember seeing you play in college and stuff. When you played at that elite level, and obviously so much is always going to be attached to the fact that you played with Michael Jordan. Let's go back to the beginning where it started in college. Really, again, getting to Iowa and getting there and just being able to excel. When did the game become really something that wasn't overwhelming to you, or was that the case from the beginning?
Well, as a young kid, Drew, it's always easy to reflect when you start saying, my dream was to be in the NBA, so forth and so on. But the truth of the matter is that I was just a young kid who just enjoyed playing basketball. It was just very simple to me. Life was very simple. It wasn't overwhelming. I wasn't trying to be a pro to make money. I wasn't trying to have the best jump shot. I wasn't trying to be anything other than to be the best version of myself. It was just very simple. Like, life was simple. It wasn't complicated to me. And when I watch the game now, it seems a little overly complicated. And a lot of that is due to my age now. And we have so many distractions now. I didn't have to deal with the internet. I didn't have to deal with like rankings and all those things. Now, I remember reading the magazines, but I didn't have YouTube. I didn't have those things to distract me from all of the things that we have in today's world. So the only thing that really mattered to me was respect, the respect that we got in the neighborhood. I just wanted to make sure that whoever they thought was the best player in our neighborhood, that, I could hold my own. If it was just that simple. The NBA was so distant to me that I didn't bother to think about, like, oh man, I got to work on my game to get to the NBA. It was just like, oh man, it's this kid named such and such and such and such. They said he held the court down. Well, where's this guy? And then, so I just wanted to play. I just wanted to hold the court down in my neighborhood. And anybody who came in my neighborhood, which was on the west side of Detroit, to make sure that they say, oh man, that's the guy. And so all of the NBA and all of that stuff, I just wanted to make sure that people in the neighborhood knew that I carried my neighborhood with me wherever I was at in the world. And I played with that. I played with that little chip. I always wanted to represent Detroit. When people saw me, they knew that, hey, that's the guy from Detroit. Oh, I remember that kid. That's that kid that played at St. Cecilia. That's that kid that played in the playground at the parks. That's all it was to me. It wasn't anything more complicated than that. And with that, I just remember those were the best times for me. Yeah, the NBA, people would talk about it, but the best times in my basketball career is playing at the park, playing at Detroit St. Cecilia, and playing with my friends. And all we cared about was the respect that we got from our opponents. All of the other stuff, it was nice. It was, I had a good time. But if you truly said where did you enjoy the most, it was playing right there. It was just playing. It mattered to me that that I wasn't the second guy chosen when they started shooting to find out who was going to pick the teams. Like if I didn't get picked first, I was like offended. That mattered to me. All the other stuff where you got drafted, whatever. That mattered to me. So my peers and the people who, my family and all of my friends, that meant a world to me of just playing the game. And it was just real simple. Like life was just incredibly simple to me. It wasn't complicated. I wasn't concerned about all this other stuff, but that did matter to me when I went up to, we called it the Saint. When I went to the Saint, that mattered. And we carried that, and we carried that pride in the way we played and the way we performed up there. When you played at the Saint, that mattered. That just, to me, that was just everything. And I never wanted to forget that feeling.
Now, you're not going to come on my show and give me this, so, yeah, man, that's that, because I'm not the one out here. Yeah, I know, BJ. I know when you talk about you playing in Madison Square Garden, you know what it meant. You know what it meant to be in that mix. Come on, you was a boy in college. Stop that.
Well, okay, that's fine. I was
Moment Rose up there running it from the football side.
And that's yeah, and that's fine. That may what a lot of people will remember me by. But I was just talking to a good friend of mine today from Detroit, and we must have talked for 45 minutes about just playing at the Saint, because that's what mattered. Anybody from Detroit knows that. Like, all right, I get why people value Madison Square Garden growing up in New York. Well, Madison Square Garden to us was Detroit St. Cecilia. That was us. And that's what mattered. Like, okay, I get it. Like, if you're another from someplace else, you may playing in LA at the Forum, the Fabulous Forum, or wherever you grew up at. For us, that was it. That's what mattered. Like, all right, you were a Big Ten Player of the Year. But if you couldn't hold that, all the other stuff didn't matter. So I get it. If people in Detroit understand, so your audience from Detroit, they'll say, "Hey, Drew, that's what it is." Like, you can go. There were guys who shall remain nameless. They might have gone on and played and become Player of the Years in their conference, but they couldn't hold the Saint down, so it didn't matter. That's what matters to us. Like, I don't know, you may be MVP over there, but can you play here? I mean, everybody from Detroit understands that. That's just a thing. And I'm not trying to convince people of how they do it in other cities. I don't know. I didn't grow up there. But what I did know is that no matter what I did somewhere else, college, the NBA, wherever I was fortunate enough to play, when I came to the Detroit St. Cecilia, everyone was edible. Everyone was going to try you. And that was the mentality of everybody to this day. They will tell you, if you step on the floor at the Saint, you better be ready to compete. So all that other stuff, Madison Square Garden, that didn't bother me. That didn't faze me, because that's the environment I grew up in. I didn't grow up in where, I had like ball boys and people were catering to it. That's not how it happened. The out of bounds was a wall. The out of bounds at the Saint was a wall, and everybody knew it. And everybody knew who was playing at what time. Now, all the other stuff, that may sound good. I mean, this guy had 25 points. This guy, whatever. That's fine if that's how you grew up. But ask anybody from Detroit. They'll tell you, like, I don't care what you did. You scored 40 at the Saint. You scored 40 at Madison Square Garden. You come to the Saint, nah, you have 5. Oh, he can't play. That's how it worked. That's how this worked in Detroit. That's how that worked. The greatest lesson I ever learned as a young kid is I remember when George Govin, the Iceman, used to come up to the Saint, and everybody knew it. And the Ice used to tell the young kids, young fella, I got a shot for every occasion. Okay? Now, I ain't hear nobody in the NBA tell me that. I ain't hear nobody in college tell me that. Only one man has ever told me that and meant it. And that was the Ice. And I learned that at the Saints. Now, I've carried that with me, and every time I see Ice, I ask him, "Do you still got a shot?" And he said, "Young fella, I do. You know I do. You saw that." So that's a Detroit pride thing that we carry, and you carry that chip on your shoulder. You carry that.
I want to ask you, whose game did you emulate? Like what you took from the Saint when you went on to Iowa? Because you got busy in college. You got busy. Go on now, stop that. You got busy in college, BJ.
I didn't. I didn't.
You didn't take anybody.
I didn't take. I didn't.
I thought you might have been from New York.
I didn't take any. I saw a lot of good players, and the one thing that I took from all those players, whether it was John Long, Terry Durod, Terry Tyler, George Gervin, Magic was coming up there, Greg Kelser, all these guys. You saw these guys. Like these guys were like, I remember when Isaiah, came. All these guys, Vinny Johnson, anybody and everybody who was a pro came there. So that was like, that's all I knew. I couldn't afford to go to the NBA games. So the Saint was my everything. Like I got a chance to play against all of the college players at the University of Michigan, Michigan State, guys who were going away to college, and was coming back. So that was my everything. It wasn't like DirecTV and I got a chance to look at these guys. Okay. Oh, this dude go to the University, I don't know, Memphis, wherever he went. Oh, let me see. So I had to, that was my one chance. That was it. It wasn't like, okay, oh man, we're going to play 5 games and then we can like talk about it afterwards and break 8 down. No, this dude and everybody, every guard knows that you picked up full court. That's what you did. It wasn't like, how you going to play? It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to warm up. This is what you did. I'm trying to give it to you and let me see who you are. And a lot of people who weren't from Detroit, it took a time to adjust to that, to the way we played up there. It's a certain style that you play, it's an aggressive style. And that's
what you had the chip on your shoulder when you got to Iowa.
Well, it was just, listen, I mean, Jordan, that's just how we play. Like, I didn't know you weren't supposed to.
I saw you with the swagger.
Yeah, I didn't even look at it as shootout. When you look at the players who've come from Detroit, right? There's a certain way you play, like whether it was Chris Webber or Derek Coleman or Jalen Rose or remember Mark Macon and Glenn Rice, late Roy Marble. It was just, that's how you played. This isn't like I was anything. It was just, I was another guy who played. It was just trying to play and hold my own. It was always somebody. It was always a guard. There was always another player, Nigel Knight, John McIntyre. It was just always players. Anderson, it was all Antoine Jobert. It was always somebody there. So this trying to play with some swagger, dog. Everybody was coming for everybody. And I know I'm missing a lot of guys. This is how I grew up. I didn't grow up where, oh man, this dude was the best. You just went there and you accepted the challenge every night.
So when you go from Iowa, obviously knowing that you're going to get drafted, what was that point? And did obviously playing in the Saint really prepare you for that? And how did you make sure that you didn't overwhelm yourself? Because I imagine you probably had to know, and you're going into your senior year, that you were going to get drafted. Or was it a situation where during the course of the season, senior year, you knew you were going to get drafted? Like, how did you manage that to like let it be overwhelming?
Well, again, now that you asked the question, I was so lucky because Dave Bean and all these people were like, they were like in the gym. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like, this wasn't like, okay, I'm coming to the gym in the summertime and Isaiah Thomas is standing right there in front of me.
At the Saint.
Dave Bean is sitting right there. George Gervin is sitting right there. So what am I overwhelmed with? Like, I'm going to the NBA? Here's dudes that scored 20,000 points. Here's a guy young Isaiah Thomas, if I was lucky enough because somebody didn't show up at the time, I was like in high school and college, and at the time you couldn't just play in the pro-ams. There was protocol at the Saint, right? The late great Sam Washington ran the Saint, and it wasn't like you just walked on the floor and played. There was like protocol here. You had to graduate to get to that point. And I knew when Magic them came into the gym, I had to sit on the sideline. And I just hoped that somebody didn't show up so that I could just pass them the ball.
So wait a minute, BJ. Did you know going into your senior year or during?
Man, I didn't know. All I know is every time I go play against Benny Johnson and all of them dudes, Joe Dumars and them guys in the summer, there wasn't no like I'm working the game. So all of this talking about like, oh, I know I'm going to the pro. My whole goal wasn't getting to the pros. Was I good enough to have a career in the NBA? Because I saw pros and I knew what a pro looked like.
I'm glad you said that.
So all of this, like this being drafted, I didn't care about that. Like I still don't care. Like, like I work in the business now and I'd be like, okay, what's your goal? Is your goal just to get to the NBA or to have a career? I wasn't interested in getting to the NBA.
Spearhead, I want to sort of go ahead a little bit, but come back to that because the fact is you do work in a business and you excel, in most cases you're a super agent. You're responsible for the term Supermax deal. You have Derrick Rose and him at the MVP level. And we always talk about this where your pet peeve is if somebody comes and say, hey, this kid is a pro. And we hear that so much now in today's high school game, college game. And I thought it was a very unique, interesting take on that. What is your thoughts on that? Just if you don't mind sharing, when you hear people say, oh, this kid is a pro, this kid is a pro.
Well, Joe, listen, for better or for worse, I've been around this business my entire life. So the people who take a stewardship of this game, I feel an enormous responsibility to help people to understand what it is they're getting into. So when I hear people say it, automatically I understand, okay, I get it. If you don't understand what you're getting into, and this is your first time, I can understand why you would say something like that. However, that mentality won't allow you to stay here because you may have that as an idea to get to the NBA, but I can guarantee you because of the competition level, and there's a limited amount of jobs. You won't stay here. So it's unfortunate that you have so many people who have talent to get to the NBA, but maybe they don't learn what it means to have a career in the NBA. And that's just an unfortunate thing because this isn't my opinion. This is just what it is. Next year, there will be a new number one pick. Okay, last year's number one pick was Victor Wembanyama. But in 2024, there will be another number one pick. And then in 2025, there will be another number one pick. So every time there's a guy that comes in, that means there has to be a guy that's going to leave. There's only 30 teams right now. So at some point here, you have to do the math. So the math dictates who's going to play. There's only 30 starting point guards or lead guards or whatever you want to call them today in the NBA. There's only 30. If you're not one of those 30, what's your chance of having a career? Because that shortens your opportunity. That's how it works. So yeah, everyone, he's a pro. Okay, great. You got drafted in the NBA or you made a roster. If you're not performing or playing in the NBA, there'll be another guy that will come in and that's just the nature of the business. So I wanted to figure out, there was a kid. He was a kid at the time, number 11 and number 4, Joe Dumars. I saw 2 Hall of Fame guards when I was like 16, 17 years old that was standing right in front of me every day. Now, what could I say to myself that's going to tell me I could beat one of them guys out? You talking about what John? I'm talking about Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, and the guy that was backing him up with Benny Johnson, the microwave. What person in his right mind gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna walk in that gym and I'm a pro and I can beat one of them guys out? And John Long was sitting right there.
So when you, as an agent, and you hear that when people, do you think it's kind of misleading?
It's
That
not misleading. It's just
because people fall under this false narrative. Like we see the tears of young men getting drafted. That's great, but it's almost like in a sense, that's in a sense of accomplishment. I get it, but it just seems like it's almost like a weight of the world's off their shoulders and not realizing you haven't done anything yet, and that gets overlooked. In your estimation,
well, it's not going to look. It's not overlooked. It's just you don't understand. It's not overlooked. It's right here in front of you. Truly, I tell players every day, you know, okay, I'm going to get drafted. Okay, that's fabulous. We will celebrate that day. But if you're not one of 30, if you're not one of 60, we have no chance to stay here or be here. So if you're not the starter, then that means you're the backup. That's the name of the game. That's the name of the game. Like, now, if no one has told you that, then you got to figure out who is your circle that's giving you the information, because you need this information. You're going to a battle and you think you're just going to have a walk in the park. That's not how this works. I get it. We all think we're going to have this magical career. I get that. There are some players who actually have that level of talent. Most of us don't. So you better understand what I'm saying. Now, you better understand it sooner rather than later. That's just what it is. That's not like people can tell you whatever they want to tell you. Anyone who's played in this league, there's been thousands and thousands of players that have played. They'll all tell you the same thing. Everyone will tell you how difficult this really is. Now, some people never learn that. Some people don't understand that. And that's your choice. However, you will get it because there will be another player next year. So if there's going to be another draft next year, that means someone's got to get out to make room for this guy to come in. That's just the reality of the business. Now, we can avoid that. You cannot talk about it. You can say people don't say it. Everybody who puts on that uniform knows that. Everybody who puts on that uniform knows that, hey, well, if I don't play and I'm sitting on the bench, I'm probably going to be out. Why? Because how you going to stay? If you don't perform, how you going to stay? Well, because I got drafted? No. They cut first round picks all the time. That's just the nature of the beast. So I can sit here and pretend and act like it doesn't happen. Yeah, it's cool to be a fan and we can talk about getting drafted. Okay, that's one day. But here's the truth. Like, no one talks about, I remember when you got drafted. Okay. Like, my parents may remember it. That's it. That's the reality of it. It's business. That's all it is. So, okay, if you want to celebrate all of the fluff about it, okay, that's fine. But when you get to the business, that happens in the court, and you got to play. So I saw that lesson before I got to the NBA, and I knew how hard it was. I had every single day I had to figure out, man, look at them guys. So here's the guys I would see. I would see Magic, Isaiah, Joe Dumars. These are Hall of Fame players.
What about in college? What about in college, though, VJ?
Yeah, what about it? Like, okay, I saw the best players. So college was just, all right. I didn't even, when I would play in the summertime, that let me know how good I was and how good I could be. College was just college. Like, okay, it was a different game. The pro game was a different game. So when I played against college guards, okay, I had 25, whatever you scored. Okay, that's college. The guy I wanted to score 25 and 30 on was the guy I was watching on television. I knew that wasn't possible. That wasn't happening. So all of this talking about I was whatever, all Big Ten or player of the week, who cared? I didn't care because I knew who the best players were. Well, I saw Irvin Magic Johnson. I saw him with my own eyes. So I wasn't like impressed with what happened in college or some college game where you score whatever you scored and okay. I saw these guys and I was like, man, I knew what good looked like, and I knew what great looked like. So all of this stuff, I was just like, okay, I got a ways to go. I got to figure this out. I got to figure out what can I do against this dude? This dude was like 6'9". Like, it wasn't like I'm sitting around feeling good about myself, because I knew what the great players were doing. And I would listen to them guys, and they would say, hey man, how good was Larry Bird? And these guys would be talking, man, how good is this guy? How good is this? And they would be talking, man. Oh man, yeah, more cheeks. And I remember I was just happy to just be sitting there and listen. These were pros talking. This wasn't like Big Ten Player of the Week, some freshman that guy went to. No, like, like, and I was like, oh man, these dudes are living in a different world. Why was these dudes training? Why they was eating different? You know what I mean? Why? And I, not that fast food, but why these dudes weren't eating fast food? Why they was working out after we got done playing? What they was doing that was different. So the reality of what you think something is always different from how it really is. And I saw that. And I was fortunate enough to be around that. And I had, I mean, man, Dave Bean, I just wanted him to know my name.
Well, let me ask you then, what was your thoughts when you first saw Michael Jordan, the first practice as a rookie, whatever? What was your thoughts?
Man, I'm just trying to make it.
Be that garbage, man. Come on, man.
Jordan.
Wasn't it all?
Man, let me tell you something. Like, Gerald, I saw the MVP of this league. Gerald, I saw a 6'7" scoring guard.
But BJ, Michael was different, Mike. Come on.
Okay, that's fine.
He stood up. He was different. You know that. And you know that.
Gerald, if that's what it looked like to you, I'm not arguing anything. I'm telling you what it looked like to me on day one. I came in there. Did I know he was good? Yes. Did I know he was this MJ that we talking about now? No.
When did you know that?
You don't. Because I'm in it. I'm in the battle. I'm not looking at this guy going, oh man, this guy, whatever. I'm in the battle. I'm in the game. I'm in the game trying to figure out how to win, because every game is a battle. Everyone is edible. At any given, there's always the next guy. Well, this guy is going to be the next guy. This guy is going to be the next guy. You got to hold off all of these next guys and still ascend and still accomplish something in your own timeline. Like, did I know he was good? Yeah, I knew he was good. Did I think he was going to ascend to where people was going to say what they're saying about him now? I had no idea. Did I ever think that when I got to Chicago, this was one of the best teams? No, I didn't know any of this. All I knew was every day I had to be a pro. And all I knew every day is that I saw a guy do something that I thought I'd never see. He could repeat being great every single day. And he showed up every single day. If you want me to tell you what I saw, I just saw a guy who showed up every day. That's all. That's what I saw. He wasn't a guy who just played in the games. He wasn't a guy who just wanted to play when the camera was on. I saw a guy show up to practice every day. That's what I saw.